This coaching search feels a little bit different, but I think it's actually a good thing.
In the world full of podcasts, he's the undisputed heavyweight champion of hot takes, an Auburn sports homer, master of the boog, and message board legend. Get your buttons buttoned and your hats flattened because the Top Button Podcast is about to kick off. And you don't want to miss your courtside seat. Now, here's your host, Charlie Five.
Yes, sir. We're back. It's another episode of the Top Button Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Rush, a.k.a. Charlie Five, and we are ready to get after it. This coaching search just feels different. And sometimes different can automatically be portrayed as bad. But I think this is actually a good thing. And what do I mean by that? For some reason, it feels like, to me anyways, there's no real slam dunk out there. In the day of college football, when there's so much parity and there's so many guys having success, it's really hard to pinpoint someone that everybody is 1,000% on board with. It's really hard to find that one guy that is just the no-brainer. I think a lot of people point to Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin's going to be somebody that's just really unattainable, I think, for Auburn for a myriad of reasons. But then you just look at what everybody's going through to get him, and you wonder, is it even really worth it when there's so many other guys out there? A name will pop, and you will literally have a lot of people that are just fired up, excited, like 100% ready to go. And then you'll have a lot of people that are like, absolutely not. But it's not like it just does. It feels like it's almost 50-50 every single time. It doesn't feel like there's that one candidate where there's more pros. I guess there's more people in the yes column than there is the no column. It feels pretty split on everybody. I mean, anytime we talk about somebody on the show, you can look at the comments and like half the comments will be absolutely not, and half the comments will be like fired up. Let's do it. Let's do this thing. You can go back as early as DJ Durkin. There's a ton of folks that love the idea of DJ Durkin being the head coach. There's a ton of coaches there's a ton of folks that are like, man, if you can just get DJ Durkin and have him run the team like he's run the defense, he'll retain the roster, which we'll talk about in just a second. He's got all the coaching connections like that. The answer's right there in front of us. But then there's a lot of folks that are, hey, we're Auburn. We should be able to shoot higher than just promoting the coordinator. Is he on anybody else's head coaching list? Is this, is that? All these different questions towards the reason why you wouldn't hire him. It's been kind of, split down the middle. The name that's been the most consistent throughout this whole thing, John Summerall. There are people that feel like John Summerall is a slam dunk. And then there are people that want nothing to do with the G5 aspect again, which I get to an extent. There's people that love that you have the Alabama connection. There's people that love the fact that, every single year you've been just decimated by the transfer portal, but you still win. You win at Troy. Troy sucks before you get there. Troy sucks after you leave. But you win 11 and 12 games while you're there. The only 2 years you're there, you win your conference. Then you go to Tulane, you win your conference. The next year, you lose your starting quarterback. It looks like you're going to win your conference or at least play for it again this year. You won every time you step out on the field just about, or every time you start a season, you stand a pretty good chance of winning. People that love that come to Auburn. You carry that momentum into Auburn and you figure out ways to win. I think that's one thing. Auburn's figured out ways to lose games, whereas Summerall figures out ways to win. But then there's people, and I think rightfully so, that are just over G5 period. I think that's kind of, I wouldn't just completely erase somebody just because of other people's failures, because there's been a lot of G5 coaches that have gone on to success at the next level, and I would hate to overlook the next Urban Meyer. I've already done that show where you talked about all the different G5 coaches that ended up being really, really good Power 5 coaches. But that's another one. Completely split. James Franklin's name was associated with the search for quite some time. You know, one of the most winning current coaches available. Won the most games of anybody. Feels like he could raise Auburn's floor to a much more palatable area. Raise the floor to hopefully 8 or 9 wins instead of 3, 4, 5, and 6 wins. Great recruiter. Look at, I think someone showed, I saw a graphic the other day. James Franklin had, since James Franklin was fired, there's been 17 decommitments from Penn State. When Billy Napier was fired, there's only been 1 decommitment so far from Florida. And then there was someone else where there's been 0 decommitments. Maybe it was Brian Kelly, possibly. I can't remember. But that just goes to show how good of a recruiter he was. He checked a lot of boxes. There were people that were like, I'm all in on that. And then there was a ton of people that can't get over the fact that he couldn't beat Ohio State, or that he, maybe had a little bit of a rough personality as it comes to relating with fans. And would that be a good fit? It was fighting both ways. You look at Eli Drinkwitz, whose name has picked up a lot of steam lately. That's another one. He's shown that he's a winner. He can win at Missouri. Won 11 games, won 10 games. Probably going to win no less than 8 this year with 2 quarterback injuries. Missouri's not really a hotbed or a historically powerful team. That's not a team that you typically look at and think, that's one, honestly, you look at your schedule typically and you in your mind, you pencil as a win. For you, not for them. You pencil that as, hey, that should be a win for us. Now they're not necessarily going to be a powerhouse, but they're somebody that's going to be a tough out every single year, no matter if it's on the road or at home. SEC success, not championship level, but very high levels of SEC success. A lot of wins. I think 22-0 in the last 3 years when they're favored. Okay. And he's won 28 games. So that means he's won 6 out of the 22 where he's not been favored. But then there's the people that are like, absolutely not, because he's 0 and whatever against teams with a winning record on, not teams with a winning record. He's 0 and whatever against teams that have finished within a winning record or whatever the stat is. Don't really care. Don't like his personality. It just doesn't feel like there's been that slam dunk hire. Kenny Dillingham is probably the closest that I think you would have the vast majority of folks in the pro category. Maybe. I think so. I think that would be the case. But even Kenny Dillingham, obviously the playoff run was fantastic. But that's really all you have to go off of. This year, they still got games to play. Sam Levitt, their quarterback's out. They lost to Mississippi State this year, who's, winless in conference right now in the SEC. I think there's even some people that would point to that and be like, I don't 100% know. It's strange that there's so many guys that are that are out there that it's split. And here's the thing. I said this at the beginning. I think that's a good thing. And I'll tell you why, because I think all those guys that I just mentioned, could win at Auburn. All those guys that I just mentioned in today's game know how to construct a roster. They've all sort of been through this back half of we're kind of getting some ground underneath us as far as the portal goes. Obviously, James Franklin just accepted the Virginia Tech job, so kick him out. But all those other guys, they've cut their teeth, so to speak, in how to work the portal, how to retain a roster, and what it takes to fill out a depth chart to be able to be competitive to win. I think all those guys that I just mentioned could win at Auburn. And I think that's a really good thing. There's a lot of really good candidates that Auburn could snag here that I think could win at Auburn. And one piece, maybe two, we're going to say there's two pieces that I think that could really are in the favor, that could be really in the favor of the next coach. Two pieces we're going to talk about in just a second. But before we do that, let's give a quick shout out to me, Kyle Rush at Keller Williams Real Estate in Auburn, Opelika, part of the Legacy Property Group. Look, if you're looking to buy, if you're looking to build, or you just want to invest in Auburn in like a short-term or long-term rental property, you need to give me a shout. Kyle Rush at kw.com. Been loving the emails. Hey, you know what? Even if you just got questions about Auburn, the city of Auburn, the area, you're thinking about moving here, give me a shout, man. I love to help. I've got, again, bunch of emails, bunch of people reaching out with just little stuff like that as far as them gathering information for if they want to make the move or not. Or you can leave a voicemail at 334-245-3615. Would love to help you and your family find your dream home. And then also we want to give a quick shout out to Roback.com. Use coupon code BARN20 to take 20% off your order. Polos, pullovers, hoodies, doesn't matter. They even have Auburn licensed apparel. Y'all see me wearing my Auburn licensed hoodie all the time. Check them out. Save big. It's Roback.com. We'll be back right after this. There's two pieces. There's two positives, I think, about this job that I think can really, really help really anybody that takes the job. And number one, it's the roster. It's just good, particularly the defensive roster. You have a ton of young talent. And then on the offensive side, you have some really good top-end weapons to utilize. So it's the next coach has to have that in mind. This does not have to be a rebuild. You've heard, again, this does not have to be a tear it down and start over type situation. This does not have to be a 2 to 3 year build. And I honestly think that is what the main thing that's on John Cohen's mind as he goes through this is to make sure that you don't get in a situation where this is another 2 to 3 year build. Because look, man, you've already gone out and got all these folks saddled up with as far as money goes. You've got a bunch of folks committed into this roster. If some of these guys bolt, or if you bring in a coach that doesn't necessarily fit this roster, or that you can't sell to this roster, and you lose a lot of your big-time playmakers, don't think the Sharks are not just circling on this roster right now. I can't imagine what all these guys are how they're being contacted. Old class, old schoolmates, old teammates, playing at different places. Hey, man, come over here. Hey, man, you need to come over here. We can get you this much money. Or, hey, man, come over here. You can start over here and get this much money. Whatever John Cohen does, roster retention has to be at the top of mind, and it can be a massive selling point for the next coach. And I think that's why there's a lot of these good young coaches that are interested in Auburn that may not necessarily have bad situations, but you just look at over, hey, I could slide over to Auburn with that roster. I could retain most of it. And then I got the resources to go and build. I could turn that thing around quickly, or I could win there quickly. This roster's good, man. And it's still you got to really think about it. Keldrick Falk is a junior. Now, he's going to be gone to the NFL, but that was Hugh's first class when he got here. So your oldest players really that have been brought in from the high school ranks on this roster are juniors. And there's not many of those that are really, really top end. I guess that's the best word to use. The crux of your roster, which is everybody always points to your sophomore class, because your sophomore class every single year is your most important, because that's who you go win with the following year. The sophomore class is unreal. And honestly, the freshman class is as well. You have an unbelievable freshman and sophomore class that you can come and sort of jumpstart this thing with. So I think that's another reason why it's not unanimous out there on who you go with, because it feels like you could take the attributes from a lot of those different coaches and you compare it with this roster. And if you can save this roster, and if you come in with the mindset of trying to save this roster, then that puts you ahead of the game. And then the last piece is you got DJ Durkin right there as defensive coordinator. You got the roster that's a no-brainer, and then you have what I think is, maybe a top 5 coordinator in college football right now that wants to stay at Auburn, whether it be head coach or defensive coordinator. I had a conversation with someone and they're like, man, it feels like DJ may have given up all his leverage if they asked him if he wanted to be the head coach but would be okay being the defensive coordinator. He's kind of given up his leverage. And I'm like, the conversation may have been the opposite direction. Hey, we want to make sure you're here as defensive coordinator, but if this thing doesn't work out with a couple of guys, could you be the head coach? I don't think DJ wants to leave Auburn. I think that Cohen does not want DJ Durkin to leave Auburn. So usually I'm of the mindset of don't force coaches on another coach. Like, in other words, don't force a coach to hire a coach that's on the previous staff, because then are you truly giving the coach, the incoming coach, all the keys, all the tools to be able to be successful if you're saddling him up with someone that he doesn't want? This situation is really different because this feels like DJ is committed to Auburn University, the city of Auburn, family thriving, loving it here, building a new house, all that stuff. It feels like he maybe could be that Bud Foster type guy that's so very rare. Bud Foster at Virginia Tech, the defensive coordinator that stayed through multiple coaching changes. It feels like he could be that guy for Auburn. So that's another selling point that makes this thing that much more appealing with any of the different names that have been mentioned. You talking about, you bring John Summerall in, hard nose, look at what he's been able to do winning, and then you saddle him up with a seasoned SEC defensive coordinator, one of the best defensive coordinators in the country, and DJ staying would pretty much ensure that whole defensive roster stays. I tell you what, man, all you got to do is go work and find you a really good offensive coordinator. You got something to cook with right there. You're talking about Eli Drinkwitz. You bring Eli Drinkwitz from Missouri to Auburn, and you're able to retain that whole defense. And then obviously he's got all of the offensive success that he's had. You tell me if Eli Drinkwitz was coaching this roster this year, Auburn wins 5-6 games? I don't think that's the case. Keep going down the list of guys we mentioned. I think that's why there's so many different names that I feel like could be successful here, and there's so many different arguments in different directions. You throw out a name, there's going to be an argument. But it's going to be pretty down the middle. There's going to be a lot of pros and there's going to be a lot of cons. I think that's a good thing. There's not just a few number of people that could be successful here. There's probably 5 or 6, and we're talking to all of them. I think Auburn's in a good spot. I still don't have a good feel yet for which direction that Auburn's going to go. We may talk about that on our members-only show on Thursday. So make sure that you're subscribed to the YouTube video, the Barn video membership, because we're dropping members-only content. Drop Daps recap from the Auburn-Houston game yesterday. A lot of stuff that we're pumping out that's going to be for just the members only, because we appreciate you guys for sticking with us through this whole thing. So we definitely want to make it worth your while. Guys, I really appreciate it. Let me know what you think. Who is that? Is there a slam dunk guy out there that I'm not thinking about? And what's funny is when we look at the comments after this, there's going to be people that say, yeah, there is a slam dunk, but there's going to be like 5 different names. Just watch. That's the way this coaching search is playing out. Really appreciate you guys for listening. We'll be back again soon. It's another episode of the Top Button Podcast. Stay buttoned.
Thanks for listening, and drive home safely.